Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. The agenda for today's discussion is the role of OKRs in building growth-oriented teams. OKR that stands for Objective and Key Results. It is a goal-setting technique that has two components basically. One is the objectives and another is the key results. In objective, when we talk about, we assign a particular kind of uh, that may be any assignment, that may be some target, that may be goal to any particular person, that may be to a team, or that may be to any particular department, or to an organization as may be. Also applicable for the third party organizations. In results area, key results area, we can monitor the progress, what the progress is there. So the good part is that here the communication is very clear, what the goal has been assigned, what the expectations are there, and monitoring is there with the deadline. So deadline is fixed, so time bound. So every activity is time bound. What I understand, this is about the OKR, and more details we will discuss with the panelists. We will have more ideas about this. For this, we have a good panel. Let me introduce Ms. Arunima Mohanty. Arunima is Head Human Resources with the Sona Comstar. She has over 15 years of experience in auto industry, EPC industry, telecom, and prior to this, she was working with the National Engineering Industries, Jai Bharat, Maruti, etc., and Rockpan Industries as well. Another panelist, I would like to introduce Mr. Vikas Khokha. Mr. Vikas is Head Human Resources with the Dhanuka Agritech. He has around 2 decades of experience in human resources as well as in marketing. Prior to this, Mr. Vikas has been with the Jimmer Biotech and Bharti Airtel as a head HR. Another panelist, I would like to introduce Mr. Amitabh Kumar. Amitabh is Chief Human Resource Officer working with the Jimu, that is an HR tech platform. He has around 2 decades of experience in human resources working with the companies like NEC India, EXL Service, Dell, and SCL Technologies. So, Arunima, I would like to come to you first. In your opinion, what is the OKR and how it helps in aligning the team with the organizational goal?
Okay, great. Thanks, Ramesh, for organizing this webinar, and welcome. And it's a privilege to address this webinar with a distinguished panelist, and my warm regards to both the panelists. Ramesh, this is a very, very pertinent topic wherein every organization is definitely a lot of organization has moved onto OKR model, and a lot of organization I do see are even adopting it. Now, what is there two way to look at it? Number one, what is OKR? Definitely, it's not only the buzzword. I purely look it as a strategy, implementation tool. And what is very important, also while there is a tool, but also there is an ecosystem that the organization need to focus in terms to leverage it and to make it to the right objective of this implementation tool. So OKR is primarily, before I even look at it, it's looked little differently. One is the set of the goal, which it addresses. Another is a set of the framework, which contains the rules, which, to manage the OKR. Now, the OKR, objective key result, as by the definition it calls it, as a framework, where is it originated? Way long back, the management by objective 1950, the Peter Drucker has introduced, and objectives came into the centerpiece of the business. And then, when objectives became mature, George Duran introduced SMART principle, like specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. And that's how the objective became much more mature based on the SMART principle. And then 1992 came the entire revolution of balanced scorecard, which talked about strategic agendas and lacked the limitation of the execution part. OKR combining it all. It does focus on the setup of the goals as well as bridges the gap between the strategic agenda to the execution. Now, OKR, when we talk about it, has objective, and objective, when we talk about it, tells you about the direction we have to go. Then the key results. Am I there to where, it talks about where am I in that objective? And then comes the third pillar called initiators. Like what do I need to do to achieve my key results area? Combining it together while, objectives and the key results, we talk about it delivers the outcomes, and the initiative talks about the output. So, the framework by and large, while it defining the specific initiative, and everybody does focus in contributing to that one common objective. We call it the vision of the organization, which is the Northern Star. It brings in the collaboration, it brings in the entire engagement focus by the people, and hence I call it a very, very strong strategic implementation tool, rightly to be used in an organization with a very focused framework. I will put it that way.
Thank you, Arunima. Vikas would like to add something here.
Sure. So thanks, Arunima, for setting this so rightly. And I just like to add that, we have very, very practically introduced OKRs in form of a COT model, which is critical operating tasks, and primarily considering that, the goals and objectives can't be that objective, and it has to be dynamic. So the first essence we take is that we create as a dynamism. When we review a OKR, it is evolving over the year, because the year is not static. Secondly, we are not very objectively measuring each parameter. We are looking at overall how a person is able to evolve and achieve that particular objective in a wholesome way, rather than measuring in terms of only the key results. Giving an example, for a sales head, we would not measure that you have achieved so and so of revenue. We might look at how you have evolved as a sales leader. How have you developed the territory? So how comes in a lot of times, then only the what. We also make it very technology enabled, so that people are able to review that very dynamically across board, not going through that once or twice a year, and that is present in people's day-to-day working. We create a bottoms-up approach with OKRs, like not only top-down driven, but bottoms up in terms of either reviews, follow-ups, even setting up OKRs. A lot of inputs comes from the people for whom the OKRs are being set, rather than only flowing top to bottom. We have recently introduced values and behaviors, which we are expecting from those particular managers and leaders also to be part of OKRs. That's another introduction. And values and behaviors can't objectively be measured. So we have to, people have to calibrate their instances, how they would showcase in the OKRs. Last but not the least, rather than, I mentioned that rather than only saying what, we would very much focus on how and why. Why is a very important component in OKRs that we are focusing. And this is something, we are trying to evolve as OKR and try to create a change which is very collaborative in nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikas. Amitabh, I would request you to add something here. But before you start your point, I would like to also ask you, and would like to know that how do you distinguish this with the management objective or KRAs, and how you relate with this OKR? Is there any difference in
Yes.
all the three?
There is a lot of difference between the basic philosophy of the two. So if we look at management by objective, typically it is taken for a yearly basis. That is what the concept of management by objective has always been. While if we look at OKR, what they work best is when you measure them quarterly or even monthly basis. So the time period itself is a very, very different. It is much more compressed and very short duration we look at it. The third point, as one of the panelists, I think Vikas has pointed out, that we follow a bottoms up approach in that. Vis-a-vis the MBO. MBO is very, very top driven. So what has becomes, CEO's objectives, typically it follows a waterfall method. The CEO writes his objective first, and then it goes down to the department head, and then it flows down to the further team members, and it keeps on going down. You keep on breaking this into different objectives, and everybody gets it. So in that sense, OKRs are more bottom driven or rather sideways driven also. I will bottoms up or sideways driven. That is the one difference. Another thing which we can look at it is that apart from the 3 points mentioned, we also look at the time frequency, and yes, typically they are dealing from the reward and reward cycle. The way we conduct objectives and performance management is typically most of the organization we link the reward cycle to it. The way the OKR works, they are typically not aligned with always aligned with the reward cycle, and because in MBO we look at 100% or 105% achievement. The way OKRs are to be done is that 70% achievement is good enough. Because if you are getting 100% results in all the sectors, maybe that one of the basic components of OKR, which is a stretch, is not built into the system. That's why people are hitting 100%. So that's how we can distinguish between MBO and OKR. And yes, as Arunima said, we look at SMART philosophy, which has been there for some time. In case of OKR, we follow a smarter terminology, as we call it. It is simple, measured frequently, adequate stretch, and reasonable, and time bound, and engaging, and definitely last part of it is rewarding. And reward may not be linked to the performance cycle.
So what is the best part of this? It is more time bound. It is more, the communication is very clear, more flexibility is there, or what?
The way I would look at it is the transparency which is built into the system.
Correct.
Typically, the performance management goals and everything, they are confidential, because the way we have practiced the performance management system from the time beginning, what happens is that this is supposed to be a confidential document. I mean, the way the most of the organization, do the traditional, performance management, it's a confidential document. It is to be shared only between your reporting manager and HR and maybe his reviewing manager. So that is the one which is the existing philosophy. OKRs means that it is a public document. So if I'm there as an HR head, or as a somebody else is there, like Arunima is there, an HR head, her OKRs are known not only to herself and to her team members or to her boss, they are known to everybody in the organization, and everybody can track and see how it is progressing. So this is one critical difference, which is there between the OKR philosophy and the traditional performance management, MBO, KRA, KPI, whatever we may call it.
Right.
So yes, another panelist would like to add something. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Vikas, would you want to add? I'll go after you.
Okay, thank you. Just one point, what I have seen, OKRs evolving year on year, time bound. It's not time bound. It's always evolving. So you can't say that the year is complete now and we set a completely new set of OKRs in the coming year. We always refer to what has gone by, what have we achieved, what is the journey that we have crossed, and link that OKR to the subsequent years OKRs, and they keep evolving with time. So it becomes a very important development tool for organizations and employees. So I treated OKR as a very, very powerful organization development tool if it is used properly. Thank you, Arunima.
Thank you. I would just like to add to both Amitabh and Vikas, what they have said, while that's very important of the approach, how the company should take it, in a very, I would say at the beginner level, what we did take care of is number one is OKR to be looked very differently. It's a continuous process. It cannot be standalone, wherein we set up a goal conventionally, yearly process, biannually visit and review happen at the end of the day. OKR for very very simple reason. While the MBO it can stay for decade, even so a matter, because it's a vision or mission is deriving from. But the OKR timely, I mean, like, stays for quarterly. What exactly is the, key results and initiatives? And initiatives, I purely call it, and what the, what the theme we have set is like, we cannot have a lot of focus area. The focus area which requires to, is it building something, is changing something, or an initiative which is critically engaged or connected to your, key result, is required an immediate focus. It's typically set for a quarter. The team needs to come together, review it at least once in 2 weeks, or in once in 2 months. And the, the success factor out here is like how progressively you review your OKRs or your progress. The possibility to attain that goal is even higher. So the two things, the time frame of setting the OKRs and the review mechanism makes it little more stronger.
Right. So more clarity on OKR and the differentiation after the MBO and KRA. I would like to know for the participants that how to write the OKR and how we can use the OKR for the human resources, particularly for the human resources as of now, and we can also discuss about the marketing and other functions. So, because I would like to have your points here.
Sure. Thanks, Ramesh. I would say that, our first job is to do a lot of coaching to our managers, in terms of, managers who are managing people, in terms of how they pen down OKRs, because, if they are not aware, it is very likely going to turn into an MBO and subsequently turn into a scorecard and get evaluated year on year. So a very clear distinction has to be drawn in terms of how you evolve an OKR with the managers and leaders. I'm just stating an example how we did it. We did it in a group exercise where we had a group of cross-functional leaders coming together, looking at common challenges, of the organization when we look at long-term goals in terms of 2 to 3 years. And we worked backwards in terms of how these challenges could be overcome, or what promises we need from each of the functions for those challenges, because these are common challenges across organizations. To getting entire leadership together to be able to first talk about what are your challenges, what are your goals, and then how do you overcome those challenges in terms of promises which could be made by each of the department. That means human resources will make its own promise, finance will make its own promise, marketing will make its own promise, and accordingly sales function will make its own promise. And then all these promises cumulated together could be distributed in terms of the functional roles, and then cascaded down the line in terms of how we're going to achieve that long-term objective. So this is how it could be done in form of a leadership meet. And then in small groups, we could do workshops where we could cascade it down the line and do a functional intervention with each of the leaders. And then these could be penned down. What we need to be very careful is that a lot of focus has to be done in terms of coaching people, how they could pen down that and how they could distinguish it from a typical traditional scorecard model. So I think when we did that, we could evolve that, and they could also evolve. There could be 1 year that you go just 50%, another you go 70%. Eventually, you're going to reach where you want to be. But there's a learning curve attached for managers as well as other employees and human resource to be able to subject it through a workshop model.
Right. Thank you. Arun, I would like to add something.
No, I think the very rightly, presented by Vikas about the entire approach of we really set up that mature, or even for that matter, the OKR model. I would throw some light on the examples for that matter in case to understand, for the participants to understand. Example like, the objective is to enhance the employee engagement score. or enhance the employee engagement, score than the last year or year on year, whatever it be. And the key results area we can we can define as like to measure the employee NPS, or for that matter the employee retention, or for that matter to really run the employee enhance the employee participation in the engagement events. These are the key results. I'm giving a very easy example, if I may have to make it understand by the participant. Now, these are the key results which would stay maybe for the year, but the initiatives, what is it, how are we going to achieve it? The key results would change and would require a continuous engagement and the work in terms to achieve that key results, and which is building up to that objective. So that's what the focus I was like want to bring in, that OKR as a model, focus on the initiatives for the time, review, stitch it, come back, pick up the initiative, which makes it even to the level up achievement on that key result area.
All right. So Amitabh, what do you think on this? What are the challenges and how you can write the OKRs?
So if we look at a specific example of human resources, I think Arunama has elaborated on one. So let me pick up another example. Let's see, we are looking at, retention as a challenge. And we look at, our objective is to increase retention or to reduce attrition. So our first quarter or even the first month objective, if we look at it, could be that we study the different demographics and we understand which are the, employees or the category which are at most risk, and maybe subsequent month we can take it up a different one, that we write in we start an employee engagement survey. If we have not done it, what are the typical scores, and then how we can improve upon it. That is one example. And anything else, so this is just for in the context of human resources, and we can pick up multiple areas like recruitment is one challenge. Maybe something like this, we need to enhance the employer branding. So we can pick it up that, okay, we will be known as an employer, or we will do some outreach activity in 10 campuses this quarter. So this is a typical way, if we can outreach as far as the outreach is concerned, and we can help in the recruitment. On other point of view, we can look at it, okay, we will publish at least 4 or 5 case studies on highlighting how we have helped our employees and how employees have made a career of ourselves. So these are the small things which can help us build our employer brand and can ultimately impact our hiring practices.
Right, thank you so much, Amitabh. Gaurav, are you there?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Gaurav, as we discussed, can we have the pool now? Is the right time for this? So this is one of the pool which is we are arranging here. That is, are you using the OKR softwares in your organization to drive the performance? So we have the 3 options here. So request to please select the option and help us to determine this.
Thank you everyone for the polls.
So, as we are talking about that OKR system, this strategy also helps into engagement and retaining the employees. So, does it also help in building the growth-oriented team? Does it motivate to the team? Does it we have more growth-oriented, more Can we enhance the productivity with this? So, Amitabh would like to share your views on this.
Yeah, see, one of the biggest advantage and what OKR does is that it brings the focus into the organization. And focus means that you are able to get to the entire team to work towards a common objective. And if you're larger organization, see, everybody has a different part to play. But typically what happens is that we get lost into the day-to-day routine task, and we forget what is our goal is. So one of the biggest thing the OKR does it, that it brings the focus onto what your goal is. And then obviously you can take it further, you can take it future. A very simple exercise to do would be that if I have to ask somebody that, okay, what is that you are working on, typically a kind of elevator kind of question would be that, what is my goal, when did I last worked on it, what is the due date? And if you ask somebody to write just three four pointers on each of the things he's working on, most of the time the people will get lost even if you have to write these 3 4 questions. And that is where OKR help. It gets your focus right, because you are committing to achieving an objective. You have to write it down, and it is available to everyone, and it is open and viewable by everyone. And what it does is that you know if there is a case of outreach, you see somebody is struggling, there is a red onto your whatever color it is there. I mean, you can choose red or whatever color you choose in. If you see somebody is struggling with achieving his objective, he's at 40%, 30%, you can reach out to him instantly and say, okay, hey guys, you are struggling at with the objectives, you are at just 30% or 40%. What can I do to help you to get to, let's say, 60% or 70%? That is the biggest advantage. It is public, it is transparent, it's available to all, and it brings in that growth orientation. And also because you are doing it for a shorter duration, it is not something that you start today and then results will be visible 1 year or 1.5 years. Typically in the performance management cycle, the cycle is starts from April, it ends in March, and by the time the review cycle happens, almost 15 to 18 months have already elapsed. So where you started and where you are now is completely forgotten. OKR does is that, okay, here it is what I need to do in this particular month, and it is visible to everyone. Whether I have done, I have not done, at what level I am, it is visible and transparent to everyone. So for a growth-oriented organization, it is the best thing to do.
So, Vikas, would like to add something how this OKR system helps in team building, growth-oriented team building.
So I think very interestingly, we've done that. We have first tried through a very calculated formula, relate OKRs to the rewards, and people do objectively can define, if we achieve our OKRs, what is in it for me as a team and a group and an individual. Second, we also link very clearly to long-term incentives like ESOPs. We are a public limited company. We have our own established way of engaging people for a long-term proposition in the organization. And it could be certain set of people or a group of people. We could link it clearly with OKRs and we could review it. Second, OKRs definitely is not talking only of key achievements. Very concretely, it also talks of behaviors. So becomes very interesting examples for people as stories. Who are the people who are exhibiting the behaviors which will help us to, consistently move towards achievement of these OKRs in the long run. Right after this meeting, I have a OKR session discussion with the leadership. That means as leaders, we come together and each OKR is discussed every Friday evening, right, with a group of leadership. And we bring in our thoughts in terms of where are we, what is stopping us to be where we should be, and what is the commitment of other leaders and departments that they could collaborate in achieving that. So every Friday, 2 hours we have demarcated to discuss each and every OKR for each of those leadership. And similar way, this is cascaded down the line. So that means there is a team collaboration in terms of a review. It's not a review between two individuals. When it comes to a team collaborates in their own way in terms of how you could make that happen and achieve that. That is becoming a very powerful exercise and engaging people to the last level. Otherwise, people are in their own isolated cocoons. I feel and I have observed that after introduction of OKRs, people have talked, people have started collaborating and communicating a lot in the organization. That means if I have a challenge, I go and communicate to 3 different leaders about it rather than sulking over myself that I am not able to achieve. So I think bringing in more collaboration and bringing in more communication channels in the organization is one of the key achievements I can see, which motivates people to be with the organization for a long time.
So, Arnima, for
yes.
everything, we need a good culture. We need to develop a culture for this. So, how we can adopt and how we can uh, create a OKR culture in an organization.
As I alluded at the beginning, like, it is very important for OKR to be, to run very successfully. It's very important to have a framework which really thrive it to, forward. So, while we had designed the OKR model and we really, set the objective very clear in a very simplest manner, it was like, the most important factors which does impact the organization is like the clarity, like, at the organization goal and the relationship of the individual work unit, how is it linearly connected, what are the standards, basis what the performance expectations can be measured, and individuals their contribution, and they can be challenged to in terms of the stretch they can have. In terms of the responsibility, we do talk about, like, is there adequate autonomy have we given in terms for them to take a risk, initiatives what they everyone had to pick. Now the very interesting part is like, which really, a very strong part of the culture is like, how do we reward the people who really come forward and set up an exemplary standard? Is the performance recognized and rewarded adequately? And are we enough giving the flexibility? I mean, like, they should not be unnecessary constraint, unnecessary reservations in the organization to hinder the kind of, people take initiative. And most importantly, how collaboratively and collectively we do come together as a team to take that, the entire objective forward, and I can see it my own contribution towards that common objective. So these are the important things which we had taken care while building up the culture of OKR.
Vikas would like to add something here.
Yeah, so I think very rightly pointed out by Arunima that culture, see, culture is, I define it in a very, grassroots way in terms of how people, commit to each other, how much of integrity that they bring in their conversations. That means I have to revert to somebody and I say that I need to revert, and do I revert in that time or not? And am I committed to the task that is in hand as a group or not? So I think I define getting together, taking a commitment in terms of achieving, and then ensuring that that commitment is honored is something that flows from top to bottom, is definitely a critical component to bring the OKR culture successful. Otherwise, it's going to definitely have a breakdown when people don't respond or they don't deliver as they promise. So what we have done is, I'm just taking a story of how we take a promise. So we don't call it a task, we don't call it an objective, we don't call it a result, we call it a promise. So the promise word is very prominently placed in our organization. If I give a promise, I have to honor that promise and I have to show that integrity. So this flow of integrity is from the top to bottom, and we are trying to merge it with the OKR system so that every OKR which is defined is linked to the integrity and promise. So the moment there is a breakdown, there is a group of people who call out through the system. That's why I say technology works, because technology helps you to be live at any point of time. There is a alert comes that there is a breakdown because of so and so reason. We don't blame anybody. So nobody needs to get defensive about it. But when people get an alert, they know that the breakdown is happening, and the group of people come forward and remove and help in removing that breakdown. So I think the culture is all about how people collaborate and help each other to get the breakdowns through and get more breakthroughs. So that is something which we are trying to build, and definitely that's a very integral portion in getting OKRs successfully executed on the ground.
Thank you, Vikas. Anta would like to add something here.
Yeah. So when we speak about the culture, one of the important point, as we mentioned initially by the panelist also, is about building the adequate stretch into the goals. Now, adequate stretch people can build only if we, have a risk-taking culture. If there is no risk-taking culture, people will not take goals which are ambitious. They will look for goals where they can show 100% or 105% or 102% achievement. So one of the most essential aspect of the culture, if we really want to promote OKR, is to have a risk-taking culture, and also something which rewards the risk. Because if we are not rewarding the risk-taking person, we are going back to the same old methodology that okay, if you achieve 100%, you are in terms of performance, you are in top 10% of the bell curve. Then we go back to the same thing. So it's very, very important for the organization to reward a risk-taking culture. And also, as they say, there's a particular model for it called CFR, continuous feedback and recognition. For management perspective, it is important that we provide continuous feedback to employees as to how they are doing, and wherever it is the goals are getting achieved, we should reward people also. Reward need not always be monetary, but just the very fact that we recognize the people that yes, they have worked towards their goal and they have reached somewhere, that is more important than actually giving them a monetary incentive. Because too often monetary incentives also put people in a defensive mode, and once that okay, this is how much I am going to get, so let me take something which is within my stretch, and I know I can do that, achieve that 100%. And monetary incentives too often disincentivize also people for not putting in that stretch and not taking risk. Because if you take risk, if there is a risk involved and you are going to be at 80% or 90%, why should I take that risk? Let me be comfortable and take what I can, where I can show 100%.
Right.
So Romesh, just adding one more point.
Yeah, please.
Point was coming to my mind that what we have done is we have also created communication partners in the organization for OKR communication across cascading. These communication partners are really helping in setting this culture right, and everybody looking at it from a common lens, which helps in bringing that homogeneous culture, and people don't look at it from an anti lens. So these communication partners have been chosen with a very strong lens of assessment, and these people also have a +1 in their career path, because if you have been chosen as a communication partner for OKR, you also have a fast tracking career, because you are doing an additional assignment, which is very effective. It's a very cross functional. It involves a lot of leadership. It involves, talking and communicating very effective to leadership. So it's in itself is a very big development tool that we are using. And communication partners are also very well engaged with us. And again, these communication partners are not from HR. They are not HR nominated. They are typically from line function. And they are few of our top talent who are our future leaders. Just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Thank you, Vikas. So one more pool. It's the time for the one more pool. So the question for this is, would you like to learn how OKRs can help in building high performance culture in your organization? Please share your opinion. Thank you. Amitabh, I would like to ask you,
Yeah.
because we have taken the opinions on about what is the OKR, how we can build up the culture, how it helps. So now, what are the tools and techniques, and what are the softwares available for this OKR?
So typically the traditional performance management system of what we have been using in KRA, KPI are not suitable for this, because most of the HR softwares are built on the base KRA, KPI and competency map structure. They have their own values, but typically they don't suit this kind of a framework. There are a lot of softwares available internationally also, but if you're looking for an Indian solution, Zimeo itself has a solution which is working, and we have done implementation across 20 organizations. So that's very good. You can give it a try and let me know if it works for you.
Thank you. Because any tools and techniques you'd like to share on this?
So we have built in an internal software which helps us to track this across organization level. That means at leadership level, cross-functional team level, organization functional level, and individual level. So there are 4 ways through which this technology tracks it, and it's a mesh tool which takes one particular objective and takes it across functions and sees what each function was supposed to be delivered, and then go to every individual who committed that to deliver and send regular alerts to them and updates to them. So I think that software helps us to take it across organizational leadership and stakeholders very effectively. Second, we are also working with SAP Success Factors in getting an automated tool against this. I think we should be ready by March, and that should help to create this more of a lead indicator. Now we want this to lead into future, and I think we are using that. SAP is helping us to get the technology to lead us into the next year. So when we set the OKRs or progress the OKRs for the next year, they'll automatically, be updated in the system as we keep giving inputs.
Arnima, I would
Yes.
like to add something.
Yes, I would like to little pay it, contribute out here. Very rightly said, because what was very important is to have a cross-functional collaboration, because the system is requiring OKR, is requiring that the approach. What is very, what we did put focus at. See, it's not about of course, there is a strong, digital platform is required, because that's the kind of, the digital intervention required in terms of cross-functional collaboration to make it transparent, to make it visible, and to make it agile into the organization. But yes, what is equally very important is the someone to really reach out for in terms of the feedback, for in terms of cross-functional collaboration, or the connect in terms of the engagement what the person is picking up. And the most important thing is which Vikas has highlighted, is the quality of the OKR, the key result, and the coaching which is required. That's the most important part for anything, because system would only be able to partner and if there is a quality input going into the system. One very interesting thing we did, because we wanted it to be a very collaborative, very participative engagement, and since I come from the manufacturing, digital literacy was again one more challenge we had, which we address it, the number one. Most importantly, we little gamify the achievement, because as I said, the OKR thrive on quarterly quarterly feedback formal mechanism, while you have bi-monthly engagement and interaction. Every achievement, there is a kind of we gamified of getting stars around it. The more the collection of the star, the end of it, that's become a kind of dashboard, and it is visible, and by default the organization get to see, oh, these are the achievers, and achievers get their recognition. So it's working all in tandem to create that OKR to thrive in the system, and the system to drive to be driven performance, with that high performance agenda. So this is what the small changes, but it's working for us, and we have brought in the organization.
Because I would like to come to you. Yeah, anything, Amitabh?
Yeah, just I would like to say that, while there are a number of, everybody is using a different software, Vivek, Vikas is using a homegrown and they're moving on to SAP SuccessFactors, Ronima is also using. So what we need to, whenever we look at a software, it is very important for us to have clarity that the dashboard should be clear. If the dashboard is not clear, while there's the softer aspect of it, how do you write OKRs and all, that is a softer aspect of it, where coaching and typical HR interventions like L&D and all come into play. From a technology perspective, let's say the dashboard should be clear, it should be transparent, and it should be visible to all. As long as this is there, your 90% of your work is done. Then rest of it, you can always bring it little later, that I want to have stars and all. In the initial stage, without making it too complicated, go for something where you can see the dashboard, all the departments OKR are clearly visible, and you can track the progress and ensure that people update their progress, or let's say fortnightly basis, or even on a weekly basis, or on a monthly basis. That end of the month, you are able to see how everybody is progressed.
Thank you, Amitabh. Because I wanted to ask you, with your experience, you are already implementing this. So, what are the do's and don'ts? That is very important. So, what is your experience on this? What would you like to share with us?
I'll share one example that attrition was supposed to be, it's a big, it's a big loss for us, because we have headquarters which are filled by people, and every headquarter should be filled for our productivity to go. If any headquarter is vacant, it's a loss of productivity. Now, is it the responsibility of talent acquisition team, or is it the responsibility of the person who's leading that portfolio? Now, because he's focusing constantly on top line, bottom line, focus product revenue, his profitability, but nowhere the focus was on filling up the headquarter. And when I talk to the talent acquisition team has to have collaboration from the leaders to interview, shortlist, that eagerness to fill up positions. So I think the OKR, the first pattern of collaboration came in through OKR, where talent acquisition team collaborates with the leader, and both have a cross-functional objective in terms of filling up headquarters. So now, not only that we see headquarters are filled up in time, but how many headquarters are vacant for an average period of time is also calculated. So the things are, through an example, I wanted to call out that few do's are that it has to be collaborated. It can't be one person or one department's objective. Once it's collaborated, and through this example, we could know that now we fill up the headquarters in time, and the average time to remain the headquarter vacant is reduced jointly. So this is how you need to evolve the joint objectives with the team. That cannot happen if the leadership is not collaborating on the top. So it starts from getting leadership in one room, getting them all together, and then cascading it down the line. Second is effective use of technology, I would say, which is do's, because you need to reach out to those people in time, and they need to have timely presence with the data and what is the status. Now, certain don'ts are that it cannot be worked in silos. I think you have to break those glass walls, you have to break silos to be able to get people together to talk. Now, when they talk, we created this new mechanism of getting people together in a room, ask them to fight their battles and close their battles before they reach out, before they leave the room. So it's like talking to each other and ensuring that all issues that you have amongst each other is settled in that room. And we had that, cultural intervention done prior to this, so that people, and do it very regularly before this is completely removed. And nothing is perfect. It cannot be removed 100%, but this has helped us to get people together to collaborate and see things from a common lens.
Ronima, by your experience, what are the do's and don'ts?
Do's are definitely, what we had, put our energy and focus at very much the communication. Communication at every aspect and every part of like, right from setting up the OKR in terms of like what would be the key results and what would be the, the initiatives, or for that matter, what need to get in what. And what was very important was like, more than what part was the how side of it, like, the maturity of viewing it and seeing it, measuring it, and participating in giving the feedback, complying to the timelines of, giving the feedback, respect to give the feedback. So communication, feedback, and continuous participation was three of the things we had focused. Now, what is not don't is like, it is not required that everything comes into it. No, the idea is like, what is important, what is requiring, what is critical to be the part of it, and it needs to be given focus that way. And the second thing is like, it should be ambitious and achievable. So that is also one of the focus we had put in. And the third part was like, in terms of the continuous engagement, like the term what Vikas highlighted, the communication side of it, like, there were communication leaders. So similarly, we also had OKR champions who were partnering in terms of the implementation and taking that initiative forward in terms of like making it a strong part of the organization in terms of achieving it.
Thank you, Arima. Amitabh, by your
Ramesh,
experience,
just one more point came to my
Yes.
mind. It's an important
yeah,
point.
please, yeah, Vikas.
People who are not aligned with you in that journey, I think you should work on them. And rather than ignoring them, I think we pick out them and work on them, because they are the people who's going to create breakdowns. So you need to identify who are the people who are going to be culprits of future creating the breakdowns, and work on them, as a team. Just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Yeah, please, Amitabh.
So just to add to whatever Vikas and Arunima has said, one of the typical challenge which comes in when we start implementing it is that we have an over ambitious target. So we have so many goals. If you start writing it, okay, this HR needs to do this, or marketing needs to do this, or sales needs to do this, everybody will write a laundry list. And typically what happens is, you will have a 10 12 list, and then for each parameter, you will have another 40 50, 4 5, and then you become say something like 40 50, and then by the time you're able to filter it down, your 1 quarter goes. So one of the most important thing which we should take care of it when we start with the exercise, or even if when we continue with it, don't have too many objectives. To start with, 3 is more than sufficient, and build around having just 4 or 5 key metrics which can define it. Don't have too many things, because the other point of it also I would like to mention is that OKR, the basic philosophy is that they are for a quarter or for a month. So don't write too many to an ambitious target, that if you want to get your say attrition rate down from 20% to 12%, by the it is possible over a period of year. Now you can't cut down your attrition rate from 20% to say 12% or 10% in 1 quarter or 1 month, unless there is some major catastrophe happening, due to which people are not able to move down, or like Naukri has a crash down, the site is not working, maybe leaving these exceptions apart. So keep it something small which you feel that you can achieve in the 1 month. Because what happens is, if your goals are too ambitious, people will not even start working on it. They feel that, okay, I'm not going to do this in 1 month. And when you come back and check at the end of the month and nothing, then you feel that nothing gets done. Third thing I would like to see is that when you move from a traditional model to an OKR model, it is also a leap of faith. So you have to trust that this model will work, and there will be problems or roadblocks or bottlenecks on the way. So you have to give it time, let people sink in. And as Vikas and Anuma both had pointed out, that communication is the key. You have to handle your employees, recognize the people who are getting onto the track, and also support them. And as Vikas has very rightly pointed out, there are people who would be roadblocks to it, to work upon them, bring them into the part. That is another aspect of it which we cannot ignore. But yes, don't start too ambitiously that we will get everything done in 1 quarter. It's not going to happen. Have a simple task or objective. This is what can be achievable in 1 month, and these are the 2-3 matrices. And you will show, as the confidence of the team builds up, the management will also be able to feel more confident, and then you can continue to stretch it.
Thank you, Amitabh. I think we have covered the topic and we have discussed all the points, essential point. But still, if any point is any important point else is there, so Rima would like to share any concluding kind of remarks.
I would just end of it. I would like to highlight, like, what OKR does to the organization. Well, it makes it a best place to work. Certainly, it set the clear, path to success, and it continuously set in the goal. I mean, like, the teams work towards continuously achieving the goal because it's so transparent and it flows across the system. So that's something, the value which definitely the organization does get adopting the OKR model.
Any concluding remarks, Vikas, from your side?
Yeah, so I would say that it's a journey that we all are crossing. So one should not get very impatient about results in OKR model. I think one should be able to watch how we can make this journey very effective, how we can make people part of this journey by effectively keep coaching them and improving from stage to stage, rather than looking at focusing too much of end result. I think that's where my last remark would be: focus on the journey rather than the result.
Amitabh, there might be many people, those after this session also may they start using first time the OKR system. So what is your advice for them?
So my advice would be that do a simple exercise, write your personal goal. Let's say I want to become healthier. Okay, I'm just putting here, I want to become healthier. So what do I need to do? I don't, okay, so let's see, I eat sweets every day, 7 days a week. That's my weakness also. So I will say, if I want to live a healthier life, I will eat sweets twice in a week. That's a very simple goal, because once you are able to master your own personal goals, you will be able to carry forward to your workplace. That's one simple thing. Is other part of it is before getting into the any tools, techniques, just write 2-3 things on a piece of paper. What is my goal? When did I last work on it? And when is the due date? Just these 3 things will tell you what is your goal and how you are progressing onto it. Forget about anything else. Just keep it, write it on a piece of paper, keep it in front of you, and you can see how you are going on it. Most of the time, the people will struggle just to write what my goal is, when it is due, when did I last work on it. That's the simplest thing.
Thank you, Amitabh. I think we have covered this whole the topic, and of course, when we are talking about the goal setting, so the goal that should be very clear. That must be very clearly communicated as well to the team members, and from where you are expecting the results. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining the session, and thank you for participating here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much.
Pleasure being
Thanks,
a part of
Ramesh.
it.
Pleasure being here.
Arunima, Amitabh.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Vikas.
Vikas. Thank you, Arunima.
Thanks, Amita. Bye.
Bye-bye.